Yes, get ready for the legal dictation containing 480 words at the speed of 80 words per minute. Let's start. 3 seconds. Start. In the aftermath of the 2004 tsunami, there was recognition that disaster response involves more than delivery of humanitarian assistance. Growing recognition of the need to respect, uphold, and promote the human rights of those affected by natural disasters, whether displaced or not, was the driving force between efforts by the RSG to develop operational guidelines for human rights and natural disaster. These guidelines, which were formally adopted by the Interagency Standing Committee in June 2006, are presently being used to train disaster responders on ways of ensuring that human rights are protected in the midst of disaster. The problems that are often encountered by persons affected by the consequences of natural disasters include unequal access to assistance, discrimination in aid provision, enforced relocation, sexual and gender based violence, loss of documentation, recruitment of children into fighting forces, unsafe or involuntary return or resettlement, and issues of property restitution. The guidelines suggest a human rights approach to planning both the initial emergency and longer term response. People do not lose their basic human rights as a result of a natural disaster or their displacement. Rather, all of those affected by natural disasters, including those who are displaced, are entitled to the protection of all relevant human rights guarantees as residents and usually citizens of the country in which they are living. They are entitled to the protections afforded to all residents and citizens, even though they may have particular needs related to the disaster and thus require specific assistance and protection measures. As with all situations of internal displacement, the primary duty and responsibility to provide such protection and assistance lies with the national authorities of the affected countries. Those affected by natural disasters have the right to request and receive such protection and assistance from their governments. The operational guidelines stress that human rights encompass not only civil and political rights but also economic, social, and cultural rights. However, in the midst of a disaster, it is often difficult to simultaneously promote all rights for all of those affected. In the wake of the scare caused by the outbreak of the novel coronavirus, which is fast gripping India, the Disaster Management Act has been invoked by the authorities. Given the nature of the crisis, The powers of the Ministry of Home Affairs have been delegated to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare in pursuance of Section 10 of the Act. The section talks about monitoring the implementation of the National Disaster Management Plan in consonance with the plans prepared by the ministries or departments of the central government and gives overreaching superintendence power to the officer executing it. Some of the measures taken to contain the spread of the disease in pursuance of the invocation of the Act pertain to closure of schools, colleges, places of public entertainment, etc., regulation of supply and price of masks, medicines, and other medical equipments to ensure their steady availability. Stop. Get ready for the general matter dictation containing 480 words at the same speed. Let's start. 3 seconds. Start. Mr. Deputy Chairman, Sir, I extend to this resolution my wholehearted support, though I wish he had extended its scope by incorporating within it two more services. But then I cannot deal with that subject now. You have assured me that the matter will be taken up on a subsequent occasion. I do not know when that subsequent occasion is likely to occur. Sir, I am grateful to the Home Minister for some kind words he has said about me in regard to my interest in this subject. No doubt for long I have been urging the necessity of creating more All India services. During the last 5 years or so, ever since that recommendation on the subject was made by the State Reorganization Commission, and during the last 1 year and a half, near about that time, I have been tabling resolutions on the subject twice or thrice, but they could not come up. Of course, as they say, there are higher forces that govern the destiny of things, and so far as Parliament is concerned, it is the government and the undisputed sway of the chair that govern the density of resolutions. Obviously, it was so ordained that this resolution should come up only now, and that too as a government sponsored resolution. Even as it is, I welcome it most heartily and feel enthusiastic and even jubilant about it. Sir, I sincerely congratulate the Honorable, the Home Minister, the tact, the firmness, the strength, and the determination which he has shown in overcoming all the delicacies and difficulties which I am sure were there in his way. The opposition and unwillingness of the states were there initially, I know. And I also know, sir, that about a year ago, when I tabled a question on this subject, the then Home Minister told us that the government would be only too glad to have more all India services, but then the handicap in their way was that the states were not agreeable to it. Subsequent to that, sir, about the middle of this year, I wrote to all the chief ministers requesting them to let me know their views on this subject, and I was a little unhappy to find that no chief minister replied to me saying that he was agreeable to it. One or two of them especially said that they were against it. Stop over.